Hi family, welcome to chapter 2 covering Bowen. In my study with KV kind of little, again, this is my version 1.0. This is nothing fancy, this is no PowerPoint, this is raw baby again, but just me helping to explain these theories, these therapists, and really the historical process to really help you solidify the context and why, understanding the why behind it, why it was created during that time frame, what it built off of, the questions it was answering that had not yet been answered or even asked, of course. So stay tuned. Here we go. I'm going to make these a lot better. I might add some more things in the next versions, but this is just my raw notes of what's been helping me. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist associate studying for the National Marriage and Family Therapist exam next month. And so here we go. So Bowen, his biggest thing was the family never starts with you. Remember, he's very historical context. Murray Bowen, he lived from 1913 to 1990. He was a psychiatrist. He was one of the true founders of family therapy. So that's why we're starting with him, because remember, I will post my lovely little creation eventually. But my chapter 0, if you have been kind of following along with my videos, my chapter 0 was when everything was individualized. We were not looking at the connections of people quite yet. It was just, the person came in with depression, you looked at the person. A couple would come in with issues, they would try to figure out which of the two were sicker. That was the problem. But that was how they were focused. Then in my chapter 1 review, we talked about general systems theory. This is when people are starting to slowly wake up and go, oh, it's not just about the individual. There's a process here. Things are connected, And now we're at, I guess, the family therapy is now officially born. And so now we're going to start slowly going one by one into each one of the things that was born from the concept of systems thinking. That's my dog again. You will hear a lot of that in my videos, but you know what? We're just going to roll with it. Additionally, you will hear baby guppies in the background. I have my 3-year-old here today. I have all my kiddos, and yes, I have a lot of kiddos, but that's for another video, not here nor there. Back to my point of this video. So right now we are under the systems. We are now in the time frame of we are all in system minding thinking, and now we're like, hey, you know what? Yes, family, there's definitely some connections there. And so what Bowen was focusing on that had not yet been focused on, which as you will see with each of these next videos, that is about all the first things that were born from the systems theory. So it'll be Bowen, MRI, and then experiential, of course, and the rest. Everybody comes in their time. Everybody starts answering questions that the others had not yet answered. So Bowen is the next one that we're going towards. And so for Bowen, Bowen was treating people at the time with schizophrenia. He was really trying to figure out what causes it. And of course, over time, we've now realized that that doesn't hold water, but it didn't make what he learned and what he pulls through his research any less relevant, because what he learned from it was that there was connections, and you will see. So Bowen was treating people with diagnosed schizophrenia, but something bothered him. Every therapist was studying the patient, and Bowen started studying the family. He would literally ask people to bring in your family. He was like, there's something more there. There's something more there. And here's where we start going. What he believed caused the problem. He didn't believe it was trauma alone. He didn't believe it was mental health alone. He didn't believe it was a communication problem alone. He believed that problems arose when chronic family anxiety overwhelmed. He believed that problems arose when people's ability to think clearly was a problem. What he believed caused the problem. So it was also people began reacting instead of choosing. So he was starting to see the connections. There's a lot of that cause and effect that he's starting to realize is a thing that previously hadn't been talked about. So again, he didn't care about communication. He wasn't looking into hierarchies or boundaries. So if you see any of that in the exam, that is not Bowen. He wasn't caring. He didn't care about those things. He did care about things that were close to it, but not that. So what he immediately noticed first, he would ask, where's the anxiety and who's carrying it? And how far back in the family does it go? And who gets pulled in? So questions he would ask would be like, tell me about your parents, tell me about your grandparents, who doesn't speak anymore, who always rescues everyone, who worries the most, who's the closest, who's most distant, who gets blamed, and who has this repeated, or how is this repeated? So he's starting to ask questions that some of the other ones are eventually going. Again, remember, this is all new stuff that's coming to age. These are new questions. So for you and I, it might be like, yeah, we know about it. But back then, remember, in context, this was all new. People beforehand had only been looking at the individual. There was no system thinking. So him looking at the family connection and how the family was part of the bigger problem as he was trying to diagnose these schizophrenic people, that was all new for him. Again, he invited the entire family into the hospital, and instead of asking what's wrong with this patient, he would ask, what happens every time this patient goes home? He noticed something fascinating. The symptoms weren't random. Families had emotional patterns that repeated over years, even generations. Bowen thought, maybe anxiety moves through families the way eye color does, not genetically alone, but relationally. So again, there's that relation aspect that he's starting to have. So historical context, Bowen belongs with systems thinkers because families are systems. That's why he's under that umbrella. But he thought everyone was focusing too much on the today. He wanted to go backwards. He's like, I feel like this is learned behavior. Genetically, there's something that's been feeding this to continue. There's something here. That's what made him different. Bowen asked, where did this pattern come from? And that single question separated Bowen from all the other therapies in that time especially. Core belief was symptoms are not the real problem. The real problem is chronic anxiety moving through emotional systems of the family. Chronic anxiety moving through the family. That is what Bowen was always looking for. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? We got to find it. Got to sever that. That's that whole, nowadays we call it that breaking that generational curse. That's what he was looking for. Why did he do it? So Bowen believed that every family has anxiety, but healthy families manage it. Less healthy families pass it around. Imagine holding a hot potato. Nobody wants it. My family did that a lot. But that's not this video. So they toss it to someone else. Eventually, one person starts showing symptoms, and that person becomes the identified patient. Bowen says, the identified patient isn't broken. They're carrying the family's anxiety. Here's another analogy I found, which I thought was hilarious, so I have to share. Imagine a family in a swimming pool. Everyone pees in the pool a little, but one child gets blamed because the water turned yellow. Bowen would be, no, the whole family peed in the pool. Like, all of y'all are the problem. Like, you would see the system. You would see everybody. So for Bowen type of therapy, the goals are, of course, to increase differentiation. Again, the differentiation, that individuality, that middle ground, to reduce reactivity, to decrease triangles. Again, triangles aren't good. You hear triangles, that's automatically Bowen, nobody else. Help family members respond instead of react. Again, decreasing that anxiety. Understand multi-generational patterns. Again, that comes with the genograms. Increase thoughtful decision making. Hopefully with things that are being more calm, we make better decisions. His interventions, of course, we all know him for genograms. That's his signature intervention. He usually would cover 3 generations back. That's normally what I do too. So that covers marriages, divorces, mental illnesses, substance use, pretty much any pattern, any deaths, any conflict, cutoffs, triangulations that you knew about. Another intervention that he was known for is for process questioning. So instead of giving advice, he would ask questions like, what happened next? Who became involved? Was this happening before? What did your parents do? Again, he's kind of reminds me of kind of a detective, questioning, kind of figuring out where's the connection. Detriangulation, again, if you hear triangle, think of Bowen, but detriangulation obviously is kind of what it means. What it sounds like, it's helping people stay in the original relationship instead of being pulled into others, instead of creating that triangle. So we're detriangulating. Another intervention of Bowen was increasing differentiation, which again makes sense because that's like his number one goal. is to increase differentiation. So obviously that's going to be one of his interventions, and that's by helping clients stay calm, think clearly, and maintain their identity during emotional stress. Some of the strengths for Bowen, of course, it's excellent for understanding generational patterns. Makes sense. You're looking at the genogram. It's strong for family conflict because you're looking at the whole family dynamic. So obviously you're going to address those conflicts that are there. It's useful for anxiety. Again, that's what Bowen's whole premise is, that the family is holding on to that anxiety and just passing on that hot potato. It encourages personal responsibility. So there's a lot of accountability because it's like, oh, wow, that wasn't my fault. That was, stuff that my mom created, or, oh, it makes sense why I reacted that way because look, genetically or generationally, that's been something that we've all been taught to do, So again, it's not so much of like not holding accountability or just holding it all, but making sense of it. Promotes thoughtful responses instead of impulsive reactions. Again, it really kind of takes the client out. If you've ever done a genogram, it really kind of lets you kind of look at the situation from afar, and it really helps my clients process a lot of the emotional connection to it because it's very distant and not so scary to process. Some weaknesses that people believe are in Bowen therapy are that it can feel emotionally distant. Again, we're not really talking about emotions so much as some other therapies will go into, like emotional focus therapy, obviously. So some people feel it feels emotionally distant. Insight alone doesn't always create change, and that's true. Understanding why, or understanding that, grandma beat dad and that's why dad beat you. That's not always going to be like, oh, great, now I feel healed. It gives you some clarity, some clarification, but it's not an automatic, fixer. Of course, there's less emphasis on immediate symptom relief. Less emphasis on immediate symptom relief. Requires motivation and patience. It does require motivation and patience. Obviously, you got to have people sit there and go through and sit through however long it takes to make their genogram. Some concepts like position have less empirical support than others. So the whole sibling positioning concept. If you see something in the exam that talks about 3 generations, differentiation, genograms being cut off, triangles, anything about family problems or birth order, or pretty much anything mental health related that talks about generational healing, generation being the key word, that's automatic Bowen for you. That's what you're dealing with there. So remember, anything generation anxiety, that type of thing, Bowen. Some catchphrases that kind of remind you of Bowen. The family never starts with you. Patterns travel. Anxiety spreads. Differentiate, don't react. So again, find that piece. Today's conflict may have started 100 years ago. Ooh, ain't that the truth? Here's some examples. A couple comes in because their teenage daughter has panic attacks. Bowen asks, when did anxiety first become part of this family? Then he draws a genogram and he realizes that the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter all have 3 generations of untreated anxiety. And so now panic attacks make sense in the broader sense of everything, because it's like, oh, it's not just mom dealing with it. It's mom dealt with it and grandma dealt with it, and it's something that's been genetically passed down through the lineage. Why was this therapy created? Well, remember, up until now, everything was very, very we were just starting to peek out and realize there's some connections, but it was all individual. It was all, the person's the problem, and the problem lives within them and only them. And now we're starting to see connections. Remember, he was looking, Bowen was dealing with schizophrenic families. He realized, okay, there's something here, when they go home, and the stuff continues, and there's something there. So this is where he was pulling it from. Bowen believed that looking only at the current interaction was no longer enough. He saw that many emotional patterns repeated across generations, and that families often unknowingly passed along anxiety, relationship styles, and coping strategies. His contributions were so widely used, and it's so wide in the lens of how we view therapy, especially with families, that it is still used today. Next, So this is going to be now, we're not finally done, but after this, we're going to be doing MRI. That's going to be the next section of what came from this new time frame now that we are in systems mindset and family therapy is officially born. With Bowen, we're going to be moving to MRI. So Bowen taught us to look backwards across generations. Remember, they're all filling in gaps of information that had not yet been answered yet. So, you know, up until Bowen started looking at the generations, the connections, nobody had officially been thinking that. You know, seeing, oh wow, that's something that grandma taught mom and mom taught daughter. Okay, that makes sense. That hadn't been done yet. So Bowen taught us to look backwards across generations. But the therapist that we're going to talk about after this section is going to be MRI. And they ask different questions. They're going to ask, well, yeah, Bowen, that's important. But what interaction is keeping the problem alive right now? Instead of tracing history, MRI is going to focus on present day, communication problems, feedback loops, attempted solutions that accidentally are keeping the problem going. And so that's for next section. I think I should use that for the last part of my video next time. Again, this is my first video for this. I'm just trying to give information. I still have a few more pages of information on Bowen stuff that I want to read, so probably another 5-10 minutes. Forgive me, but it's really good stuff. So if you are studying for this exam and you don't know Bowen that well, finish up with me, because I'm hoping that what I have left will help connect or hopefully fill any dots in for the Bowen section for you when it comes to the exam. So this next part is called Bowen's 8 core concepts. Obviously, anytime you hear differentiation, I hate that word. I struggle saying it all the time. You'll learn in my videos. But yeah, so his number 1 core concept was differentiation of self, which is the ability to balance emotion and reason while maintaining your own identity. So obviously that's his biggest part, you know, is really, you know, being comfortable in who you are. Healthy differentiation obviously means that, you know, I love my family, but I don't lose myself trying to keep everybody happy. You got that healthy boundary, you know, you respect yourself, you got that self-esteem, you don't live off of their praises or any of that. Like, you have that healthy boundary and you're just fine the way you are. You do not need, their reaction towards you doesn't impact you because you have that healthy sense of differentiation. Of course, we also have people that have low differentiation, which means, you know, those are the people that are like, oh, my mom's upset. No, I'm upset. Oh, no, everyone's upset. And so you just carry all that emotional baggage with you very easily. It just sticks onto you. And so those are those values. Here's an analogy. Imagine being an emotional Wi-Fi router. Low differentiation, you automatically connect to everyone else's emotions. High differentiation, and you choose whether to connect. My thing is, I always think of it like a wall. You have low differentiation, everybody's coming in, like emotions, thoughts, issues. High differentiations, like you have a high wall. No shit's coming through. You know, you got the fucking wall up. Anyway. Another concept, or a second concept of the 8, are triangles. So again, every time you see triangles, automatically Bowen. Nobody else uses them. For some reason in my mind, before I did my own study creation, like I thought other people use these exact same words, but they don't. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, triangles, when anxiety builds between two, they pull in a third person. So, you know, it's that whole mom, dad, pull in the little kid, you got your triangle. So example, mom and dad fight, child is suddenly the focus, and now everyone talks about the child. Nobody talks about the marriage. Triangle reduces the anxiety temporarily, but never solves it. Next one, number 3, nuclear family emotional system. So patterns inside one household. So all of what's going on in your own little household. So the marital conflict, over-functioning spouse, under-functioning spouse, child symptoms, any distance between them. And these become predictable. So kind of like that system, that the patterns that you're keeping the homeostasis within that family is what would be the nuclear family's emotions. The 4th one is family projection process. So parents unintentionally project anxiety onto one child. That child becomes the sensitive one, the difficult one, the sick one. So that's kind of you projecting your own stuff onto your kid. Number 5, multi-generational transmission process, which was another one of Bowen's favorites. So patterns don't start with you, they travel generation after generation after generation. So example, alcoholism, emotional distance, people pleasing, parentification, conflict avoidance, anxiety. Analogy, think of emotional heirlooms. Some families pass down jewelry, other pass down anxiety and trauma. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Grandma, Grandpa. Number 6 is emotional cutoff. Instead of solving family anxiety, people disappear. I never speak to my family. I moved away to get away from them. Bowen says distance does temporarily reduce anxiety, but remember, it is only temporarily. The emotional process often continues internally, which is true, and I'm going to actually make a personal video on that one day. 7 is sibling positioning. Again, earlier we did talk about how it's already been disproven, but there were still nuggets of important things that do come from it, and so it is still kind of lightly used. Again, sibling positioning was birth order influences, personality, oldest, youngest, middle, only child. Bowen borrowed heavily from Walter Thoman's work on sibling positioning. He believed these roles can shape expectations and relationships, but birth order is not destiny. And that's a big thing. I get a lot of clients who are like, oh, I'm middle child. And so yeah, middle child. Yeah, I get it. You know, it sucks. It's not always, we're kind of the forgotten one sometimes, it feels. But that's not destiny. And that's one thing, is you can change it. Yes, you might be more adequately exposed to certain situations around family members, but it doesn't mean that you are forever going to be middle child syndrome through every aspect of your life. And that is something that a lot of people fall into. Anyway, that's for a whole other video too. Number 8, social emotional process, which is families don't exist in isolation. Society experiences anxiety too. So thinking about economic crisis, wars, political polarization, natural disasters. So basically social anxiety influences families, keeping that in mind too. That Bowen is not just looking at again, he's looking at things, outside. He realizes that, your societal connections are going to affect you as well. He's not just very closed-minded and is like, oh, we're only looking at generations. He also noticed that there are societal things. So his mind was, again, these are the very beginning processes. So a lot of this is I just need you to remember, these are first time. This is back in the 1950s. So this is very beginning of systems thinking. So even him realizing, hey, this is beyond the family systems, it's an even bigger system outside of it. It's a societal system. So that's even bigger. Like, talk about forerunner of that thought process. And look, we're done. All right, so 24 minutes. That is everything I got on Bowen. Again, I'm sorry it's a little choppy and it kind of went back and forth. The next section will be MRI, and I will eventually create this little beautiful chart. I don't know, I wish I had the time, but anyway, I'll do what I can. So we already did video 1, which was everything when everything was individual minded. We did video 2, chapter 1, which was when we were starting to open our eyes to systems, realizing, hey, you know what, life is connection. And then now we are in the era of family therapy, and we just did Bowen. Next, we're going to do MRI, and then we'll keep on moving through. I know I already did structural. I kind of skipped some steps. Bear with me. I'm sure I'm going to redo these videos 10 times over as I added content and kind of smooth out the process. But nonetheless, if you're studying for this exam, I wish you the best. Don't give up. I'm hoping that something clicks, even if one thing clicks, don't give up. Beyond this, please ensure that you do try to at least study how to break down the questions that are in the exam. That is really, really important for all of us, because sometimes we can get kind of all overwhelmed with the wording. So focus on what they're asking, not what they're not asking. Focus on just the fact that, give faith in the fact that you've got this. You've gone through the schooling. You've done the work. At this point, I'm sure you've seen hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of clients. You've got this. Right now, we just got to tighten down the concepts. Why did it start? What were they answering that wasn't already previously answered? And how do those concepts connect to this person's mindset? Bowen was looking through generations. All of his goals were talking about the anxiety that is passed down through generations. So all of his goals are going to be ways to lessen that anxiety, which is differentiation. And his best way of showing that and looking through all that was creating a genogram. And so every intervention you see that has to do with a genogram, differentiation, triangles, detriangulation, things like that, think Bowen. Always Bowen. You got this. Have faith in yourself. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.